Are the most powerful and richest people among us trying to influence the outcome of next week's presidential election? That's a question many are asking after the Washington Post announced last week that their editorial board will no longer endorse a candidate for president. Since 1976, the Washington Post has endorsed a candidate in 11 out of 12 elections. Here's what publisher William Lewis wrote in an op-ed last week announcing the decision. We recognize that this will be read in a range of ways, including as a tacit endorsement of one candidate, or as a condemnation of another, or as an abdication of responsibility. That is inevitable. We see it as a statement in support of our readers' ability to make up their own minds on this, the most consequential of American decisions, whom to vote for as the next president, which all sounds noble. But here's the kicker. According to insiders, the Post was about to endorse Kamala Harris when Amazon owner and billionaire Jeff Bezos himself, who bought the Post in 2013, pulled the plug. Even the Post's humor columnist couldn't resist roasting the last-minute decision and took it upon herself to make the paper's endorsement, saying, "We as a paper suddenly remembered less than 2 weeks before the election that we had a robust tradition 50 years ago of not telling anyone what to do with their vote for president. It's time we got back to those roots, I'm told." So that's the first problem everybody has with this, the timing. The Post has always leaned Democrat, so their endorsement wasn't going to be a big surprise. But with less than 2 weeks before the biggest election, some say, of modern history, the last-minute change of heart left Post reporters wondering if something more sinister was at play. Readers were even more ticked. In a matter of a few days, the Washington Post has reportedly lost at least 200,000 subscribers, which is a lot. Media critic Dan Frumkin waded through the Post's comments section, such a brave soul, and found that readers who mocked the Post's slogan, "Democracy dies in darkness," which, by the way, the Post came up with because of Trump, felt betrayed. In his own editorial published Monday night, Bezos defended his decision, saying the news media has less credibility than Congress these days, which is saying something, and it's not good, and that the loss of credibility will erode our democracy more than choosing not to make an endorsement would. He wrote, "Let me give you an analogy. Voting machines must meet two requirements. They must count the vote accurately, and people must believe they count the vote accurately. The second requirement is distinct from and just as important as the first." He went on to write, "Presidential endorsements do nothing to tip the scales of an election. No undecided voters in Pennsylvania are going to say, 'I'm going with newspaper A's endorsement.' None. What presidential endorsements actually do is create a perception of bias." But has he done more harm than good by waiting too long? He added that many people are turning to off-the-cuff podcasts, inaccurate media posts, and other unverified sources, which can quickly spread misinformation and deepen decisions. Sounds great, but if that's the truth, there are whispers of ulterior motives. He wrote, "I will also not allow this paper to stay on autopilot and fade into irrelevance, overtaken by unresearched podcasts and social media barbs. Not without a fight. It's too important." So what's behind his decision? Some say it's his own business interests. There are whispers. The very day the Post made its big announcement, Trump met with executives from Bezos' space company Blue Origin. Bezos said the two events were not related and it was just bad timing, adding, "You can see my wealth and business interests as a bulwark against intimidation, or you can see them as a web of conflicting interests. Only my own principles can tip the balance from one to the other. I assure you that my views here are in fact principled, and I believe my track record as owner of the Post since 2013 backs that up."
Every newspaper can decide whether it wants to issue political endorsements or not. If this decision had been made 3 years ago, 2 years ago, a year ago, fine. They can decide whether they want to issue endorsements for president or any other political office. But this was a decision that was announced 11 days before the election. It was not a decision made in consultation with the editorial board. It was a decision that, according to the Post itself, its own reporting, that was made by Jeff Bezos, and the circumstances are just highly suspect. So that's my concern here, and that's why I'm speaking out. Normally, if I were at the newspaper, I wouldn't be involved in these decisions, of course, but I felt it was important to speak out in this instance. During my time at the Post and during Jeff Bezos' ownership, during that entire period, he resisted pressure from Donald Trump. Trump tried to undermine the Amazon's business. He said he was going to do that. He threatened to increase postal rates. double them, triple them, quadruple them. He did intervene in a $10 billion Defense Department cloud computing contract to ensure that it did not go to Amazon. Bezos stood up to that. He let us do our work with full independence. He let the opinions department do their work as well. They actually wrote 2 editorials against Trump's campaign for the presidency, first in 2016 and then in 2020, when a question was raised as to whether they would actually write an editorial in 2016. Bezos said, well, why would we not issue an editorial?
But could Bezos have succumbed to pressure? During the first Trump term, Bezos lost out on a huge contract, a decision he says was swayed by Trump's disdain for him. The Post has never endorsed Trump. So it's not so hard to believe that Elon Musk, who campaigns for Trump, has made no secret of how much his relationship with the former president could benefit him in his own business dealings. All of this raises another question. Should news outlets be owned by billionaires and business people whose own interests might conflict with transparency and accountability in media? Is Bezos really out to save journalism, or is this about business interests and optics?